The moment Veoloria, queen of the Zelthari, stepped onto Earth's soil, a silence fell over the gathered crowd. The diplomatic event had been years in the making, a symbol of peace between humanity and the Zelthari Empire. But there was an undeniable tension in the air. She was taller than most humans, with violet-hued skin that shimmered under the city lights. Her golden eyes scanned the humans before her, sharp and unreadable. There was power in the way she moved, in the way she carried herself, an untouchable force of nature. And she had made one thing clear the moment she arrived. No human is to touch me. You will regret it if you do. Rhys had been assigned to her personal security detail, a role he hadn't asked for but couldn't refuse. A former soldier, he had spent years on battlefields before taking up work as a private security officer. Guarding an alien queen? It was just another mission. Or so he thought. From the very first moment he saw her, he knew she would be trouble. Veoloria was proud, distant, and utterly unreadable. She hardly spoke to humans unless necessary, her voice carrying an air of authority that made it clear she expected absolute obedience. Rhys had dealt with commanding officers before, but none like her. The way she looked at people, as if she were above them, untouchable, rubbed him the wrong way. Not that it mattered. He wasn't here to make friends. The event was a grand affair, held in one of Earth's largest diplomatic centers. Politicians and dignitaries gathered to celebrate the alliance, dressed in their finest. Veoloria stood at the center of it all, poised and regal, as speeches were made and agreements were signed. Then, everything went wrong. The first shot came from the upper balcony, a bright streak of plasma slicing through the air. It was aimed directly at Veoloria. Rhys moved before he even had time to think. Instinct took over. He lunged forward, reaching for her. His hand wrapped around her wrist as he yanked her out of the way, just as the plasma bolt seared past where she had been standing. A shockwave exploded through his body the moment his skin met hers. It wasn't pain, but something else, something deeper. A force surged through him, burning through his veins like liquid fire. His breath hitched, his muscles locked. Veoloria gasped, stumbling back as if she had been struck. Her golden eyes widened, flashing with something almost like fear. But there was no time to process what had happened. More attackers emerged from the crowd, weapons drawn. Security forces reacted immediately, shots fired in return. Chaos erupted. Rhys gritted his teeth, forcing himself to push through whatever had just happened. He pulled Veoloria behind cover, shielding her with his body as they assessed the situation. The firefight didn't last long. The assassins were taken down quickly, overwhelmed by security forces. In minutes, the room was secured. But the damage had been done. Rhys turned to Veoloria, expecting her usual cold composure. Instead, she was staring at him, not with anger, but with something far more unsettling. Shock. Confusion. And beneath it, a trace of something else. Her voice faltered, something that had never happened before. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head as if trying to steady herself. You touched me. Rhys let go of her wrist immediately. The warmth of her skin lingered on his palm, unsettling in a way he didn't understand. I saved your life, he said, keeping his tone even. A long silence stretched between them. Then, her expression hardened, and the composed queen returned. You will regret this, she murmured. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Rhys with a sinking feeling in his gut. Whatever had just happened, it was far from over. Rhys stood outside the queen's chambers, arms crossed, waiting for the inevitable summons. The way Veoloria had looked at him after the attack, that mixture of shock and something else he couldn't quite place, stuck in his mind like a splinter. He had broken her rule. And yet, he wasn't afraid. When the doors finally slid open, a Zelthari guard stepped forward. The alien's silver-hued skin glowed faintly under the soft lighting of the palace corridors. The queen will see you now, he said, voice devoid of emotion. Rhys stepped inside, his boots silent against the polished floor. Veoloria stood by a tall window, staring out at the city beyond. The lights of human civilization reflected in her golden eyes, but she didn't turn to face him. "You disobeyed me," she said, her voice quiet but edged with something sharp. "You were about to be killed," Rhys replied. "Forgive me for doing my job." Finally she turned. There was no anger in her expression. No cold fury. Just something unreadable. She took a slow step forward, her gaze locked onto his. "You touched me," she repeated, her tone almost softer this time. "And yet you still stand." Rhys raised a brow. "Was I supposed to explode?" Veoloria didn't answer. Instead, she reached out, not much, just the barest movement as if testing something. Her fingers hovered near his forearm, hesitating. Then, with deliberate slowness, she pressed her fingertips against his skin. The reaction was immediate. A rush of heat pulsed through him, not painful, but overwhelming. It wasn't like an electric shock. It was deeper, something almost alive. Veoloria inhaled sharply and pulled her hand back as if burned. Rhys clenched his jaw, willing his body to stay steady. What the hell was that? For the first time since he had met her, she looked uncertain. "It should not be possible," she murmured. "A Zelthri queen does not react this way to a human." Rhys exhaled slowly. "Well, considering I don't make a habit of grabbing alien royalty, I can't say I've got much experience with this either." Her gaze snapped back to his, as if trying to find deception in his words. He just met her stare, waiting. Then, to his utter disbelief, she stepped closer. She was inches away now, close enough that he could see the faint glow beneath her violet skin, the way her pupils dilated just slightly. "There is something between us," she said, her voice quieter now, almost reluctant. "Something I do not understand." Rhys held her gaze. "And what does that mean?" Veoloria exhaled slowly, as if even saying the words would change something irreversible. "It means," she said, "that you may have just bound yourself to a queen." Rhys ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "Bound? What the hell does that mean?" Veoloria turned away, pacing toward the window once more. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked unsettled. The ever-composed queen, the untouchable Zelthri ruler, was fidgeting. "It should not be possible," she muttered, almost to herself. "A bond cannot form with an outsider. It is unheard of. Unthinkable." Rhys crossed his arms, watching her carefully. "Then maybe it didn't happen." She turned sharply, golden eyes flashing. "Do not be foolish. You felt it." "I felt it." He wanted to deny it, but she was right. He had felt something. The moment his skin touched hers, a wave of something hot and electric had coursed through him, something that went beyond instinct or adrenaline. "What does this bond mean, exactly?" he asked, keeping his voice level. Veoloria hesitated, then lifted her chin, regaining some of her usual confidence. "A Zelthri queen does not choose a mate as others do. A bond is absolute. Once formed, it cannot be severed. It is rare, even among my kind. And never, never, has it happened with a human." Rhys's stomach tightened. "You're saying we're connected now?" Her expression darkened, as if the very idea repulsed her. "It should not have happened," she repeated. "There must be a way to break it." Something in his chest twisted at that. He didn't know why. It wasn't like he had wanted to bond with her, whatever that even meant. But hearing her so desperate to undo it made something in him bristle. "Well, until you figure that out, what happens now?" he asked, forcing a casual tone. Veoloria inhaled deeply, as if steeling herself. "For now, nothing changes. You will continue as my guard. But we do not speak of this. No one can know." Rhys frowned. "That bad, huh?" She stepped closer, her expression serious. "If my people learn of this, it will be seen as a disgrace. A weakness. And some will use it against me." Rhys had seen enough politics to understand the danger in that. An alien queen bonding with a human? It wasn't just scandalous, it was a threat to her rule. "Fine," he said. "Your secret's safe with me." She studied him for a long moment, as if searching for any sign of deceit. Finally, she nodded. Good. But as she turned away, he could see the tension in her shoulders. And despite everything, he had the strange feeling that whatever had just started between them was far from over. The next few days passed in tense silence. Veoloria remained distant, her usual composure masking whatever storm brewed beneath. Rhys continued his duty as her guard, pretending nothing had changed. But it had. He could feel it. It was in the way her golden eyes lingered on him a second longer than before. The way his body instinctively reacted when she was near, his pulse quickening, his senses heightened. It was like an invisible tether between them, something he couldn't shake no matter how hard he tried. And she felt it too. He knew it, but she was determined to ignore it. One evening, as they traveled back to her quarters, she finally broke the silence. I may have found a solution. Rhys glanced at her. To the bond. She nodded, though there was no triumph in her expression. There is a ritual, an ancient one. It was once used to sever unwanted bonds among my kind. Something in Rhys's chest tightened at her words. Unwanted, huh? Veoloria paused for half a second before answering, her voice carefully controlled. This should never have happened. I cannot afford such distractions. Rhys huffed a quiet laugh, though it lacked humor. Glad to know what you think of me. She turned to face him fully, frustration flickering across her otherwise regal face. This is not about you, human. Isn't it? He shot back, stepping closer. Because last I checked, this bond goes both ways. For the first time, her control slipped. Her breath hitched, so faint, so quick, but he caught it. Her gaze flickered to his mouth, just for a second, before she forced herself to look away. She was fighting it. Fighting him. You don't understand, she said, quieter now. If we do not sever this, it will only grow stronger. You will feel what I feel. And I will feel what you feel. The words sent a pulse of heat through Rhys's veins. Is that really so terrible? Veoloria exhaled sharply. You do not. The ship jolted suddenly, alarms blaring as a violent explosion rocked the transport. Rhys reacted on instinct, grabbing her waist and pulling her against him just as the lights flickered. The ship lurched, sending them both tumbling. He landed on his back, Veoloria half on top of him, her body pressed against his. For a split second, neither of them moved. The sound of their ragged breathing filled the air. Then, there it was. That feeling again. Heat. Electricity. Something deeper. Veoloria's pupils dilated, her lips parted slightly as if she, too, was overwhelmed by the sensation. Rhys. It was the first time she had ever said his name. Not human. Not guard. Just Rhys. His grip on her tightened, his heart pounding. Yeah. Her breath was warm against his skin. We need to get up. Neither of them moved. The moment stretched too long. Too charged. Too dangerous. Then the ship rocked again, breaking the spell. Veoloria tore herself away, standing swiftly, her regal mask snapping back into place. Find out what happened, she ordered, voice clipped. Rhys stood, forcing himself to push past whatever had just happened. On it. As he moved toward the cockpit, he could still feel the phantom warmth of her against him. And he knew, no ritual was going to erase this.